my name is Arno. I'm a talent acquisition specialist at Liedekerke, and today I'm going to talk about the 7 habits that make me a better young professional. So I'm going to start with my first habit, which is organizing and planning. I'm not an organized person by nature, I might say. I think I'm quite chaotic. I'm someone who goes with the flow. I'm someone who's very flexible. So planning and organizing or structuring stuff is not in my nature. So I really had to teach myself how to use a to-do list, for example. I started by making a simple to-do list. It can be on paper, and then when you wrote all those things down, it's important to prioritize. Okay, now you have a list of your to-dos. What is the most important thing? What has to be done first, and what is not as important and can wait for later on. So my second habit has to do with my job as a recruiter, but it also involves my personal life. It's not making assumptions based on first impressions. When you're a recruiter or an interviewer, you always have this first impression bias, actually. So I learned to be aware of that bias and not make assumptions based on that bias. So my third habit is listening to podcasts. This is actually something I have to admit that I only started doing recently or not long ago. And nowadays it's really a habit of mine. I listen to podcasts on the train. I listen to podcasts when I'm having breakfast, when I go for a jog. And I do this with topics that are professionally interesting to me, like HR or marketing related podcasts. But I also do this with more fun podcasts or podcasts that are interesting to me personally. For example, the Marketing Millennials is one that I'm interested in because it tackles different aspects of marketing, employer branding, personal branding as well, and focuses on the newer generation or the millennials, as the name might say, about how important it is that brands become more personal, more authentic, more human, and that's a way of doing marketing where I stand by. So that's why that podcast to me is very interesting. Actually, me and one of my colleagues, we are recording a podcast right now. It is to focus on our employer branding. The first podcast would for example be to coach law students, because the law students are the audience we want to be talking to. We want them to apply at Liedekerke for a possible job here. So we think it's interesting to actually coach them by making a podcast about what challenges you might have studying law, or what challenges you might have when you're looking for a law firm you want to work for. But you'll definitely have to check out our podcast if you want to know more about that. So my next and fourth habit is disconnecting. I think it's important to disconnect not only from work, but also from the world, because we're living in a busy world and everyone is always on with social media and stuff like that. But I think it's important from time to time to take a step back and reflect. There are many ways of which you can disconnect, and I think it's different for everyone. Disconnecting, clearing my head, I can do it by running. Some people can have it while cooking. Like it's some form of ritual or habit you're used to. It can be brushing your teeth and doing your skincare before you go to bed. It can be anything basically, but just something where you really are on automatic pilot and you can clear your head. My fifth habit is putting things in perspective or seeing something from someone else's point of view. So whenever something bad happens or something inconveniences me, I just know that I can put it into perspective and I know it's just a moment and it will pass. I do think that it has evolved while I was growing older, and especially me being gay, you're living a lifestyle that's not condemned by everyone. So you are judged in a way, and maybe sometimes you're even called things or whatever. And I think you learn how to put those things in perspective. People who might call you stuff is just because they don't know what it is, and it's about that uncertainty, or they're afraid of the unknown. My sixth habit is listening first and talking later. I do have to admit I'm a talker and I talk a lot, but I think it's important to listen to your conversation partner. And especially for me as a recruiter, I have to listen to the person I'm talking to, and I have to get where their motivations, where their interests, where their aspirations come from, because otherwise you're not gonna be able to evaluate them correctly. It might help you with my previous habit, seeing something from someone else's point of view as well. It might give you new ideas. I think recruiters as well, they have a tendency when you're talking to someone to think, okay, what's my next question gonna be? And you don't want the conversation to go silent, which isn't a bad thing actually. The conversation can go silent and that's natural. But I think there's way more value in asking questions that go further on the topic that has been talked about, because then you're going deeper into that person's motivations, for example, than having these standard questions, which are fine to structure your interview. But I think if you just have these standardized questions and you don't go deeper into the conversation, you only get to know the surface of that person. My final and seventh habit is standing up for myself, or what I believe in, or just being myself. And I think in general, young professionals tend to not do that. They're afraid they might say something wrong, or they're afraid that they might get criticized on what they're saying, or just neglected. But I think it's important to say what you're thinking, to really speak out your ideas, because even if you are a young professional and you don't have that level of experience as other people, you can still have great ideas, and even more diverse or other ideas than the people who have this level of experience.